In this video, you will learn how to set up lights in PeachWorlds editor. Let's talk about spot, directional, and point lights in PeachWorlds editor. You can import all of those three lights from the left panel right here. So you just click on the top left button right there and navigate to basic, and then you can see lights and you can choose from directional, point, and spot lights. To import the light, you just need to simply click on it and it will appear in your scene. For this case, I already have all the three lights set up in my scene, and we will discuss each one of them. Let's talk about the spotlight first. So I will disable my directional light and my point light in the scene. Now we can only see the spotlight illumination. Spotlights are very good when you need to have a little bit more dramatic, focused illumination on your object in a 3D scene, just like you can see here. Let me just quickly navigate to global settings and disable helpers, so we can have an unobstructed look at how this light actually works. Let's look at the spotlight controls. On the right properties panel, you can see all of the options available for you to control your spotlight. First and foremost is the color. So you can change the color of the light, just like so. Next would be the intensity. So you can control how strong the light is. Distance, so how far the light is illuminating from its source. So you can see if I'm changing the distance, it can easily be visible how it affects my object and the objects below. Then is decay, and decay is basically just controlling how far the light reaches before it sort of dims more. In the real world, the further you are from the light source, the less illumination you will get. But in here, we have an option to go to 0 and not being affected by this at all. Here you can control the angle of a cone. So if I'm going to increase it, as you can see, it starts to illuminate much larger area around our object. At the same time, when I'm decreasing it, it will keep focusing to a very small portion of the light. That's why you can create pretty cool light effects just by using spotlight. On the bottom here, in the right properties panel, you can also control the shadow produced by this light on your object. So if I would just click no, the shadow from my object will disappear. That is good when you just need the illumination and you want to avoid having shadows. Let's put it back on. And then here we have the shadow quality control. We recommend to keep it at normal, because if you have more lights in the scene, that could affect its performance. Let's have a look at the point light, and I'm disabling spotlight now, enabling my point light. There we go. How we can zoom in a little bit more into our object here. And point light basically is kind of like a light bulb in your room. It produces the light evenly in every direction from the light source. So it is good actually to mimic similar objects like light bulbs in your scene. Let's move it slightly forward so it illuminates a little bit more of our trainer here. With the point light, you have less settings than with the spotlight. However, you can still change the color. You can choose, how strong your light is, the distance of how far the light is traveling from its source. So again, you can create quite a cool light effects in your scenes by just playing with the distance. And then as well decay, which we already talked about previously. Now we can move on to a directional light. So let's just turn off our point light, turn on directional light. Directional light is good when you need to illuminate larger portions of your scene. And it always locked in the center of your scene. So no matter how you move your light, it's going to always look to the center. So let's zoom out a little bit. And I'm going to go back to my global settings and turn on helpers right here. And now I can see my directional light. So I'm going to start to move it around the object. As you can see, it's always pointing to the center of my scene. Therefore, the shadow is always produced to only one direction. It's good as well to use this light to mimic a sunlight in some cases. You can also change the color. and you can change the intensity right here. Let's talk about the environment and ambient lights in PeachWorlds editor. So at the moment, my scene looks completely black because I have no light source in it. Let's go and enable ambient light, which you can find on the right panel right here. As you can see, when I enable this light, I can immediately see my plane and cube objects in the scene. One thing to mention about ambient light, that it doesn't produce any depth. So you have no shadows and even light from all directions. It's good to use for overall scene lighting. Sometimes you can use it with a pair of other lights. However, it's not going to affect materials with reflections or more complex textures. So ambient light is a very basic light source of the 3D editor. You can change its color and you can change its intensity right here. Okay, so let's bring our ambient light back to the white color here and keep its strength at 5. Now I will remove the cube object from the scene and enable a concept car model that I uploaded previously. As you can see, it still looks dark. However, we can see the plane object is clearly illuminated, but the vehicle is dark. And the reason for that is because we have a lot of reflective materials on the vehicle and ambient light is not showing those details. To really bring it up, we need to enable our environment light, which you can find on the right panel here. And it comes with preloaded images already for your lighting. However, you can upload your own, and PeachWorlds supports HDR and EXR file formats. So let's choose something that is already in the editor, let's say Photo Studio 2, and enable this light. As you can see, immediately after I enable the light, we can start seeing all of the details of the vehicle. And if we would just look around, you also will notice that there are some nice reflections. Environment light basically gives you an opportunity to bring up all of those nice details of your 3D models in the scene. So you have several control options of your environment light in the editor. Let's click on the environment light button, and then you will see the properties panel right here. And that will allow you to rotate your light, change its intensity, change its opacity, and in some cases you can use option called blur. Now what blur does, you're not going to be able to see right here, but if I would enable my environment light as a background, you will actually see the image itself. If you would like to blur it, you just use this toggle here and then change its opacity as well. So in that case, you can actually use your environment light as the background of your scene.